let's preview some games. Wild Card Weekend is just around the corner, and college football too. A lot of great football action coming your way. Although, to be honest with you, spoiler alert: Wild Card Weekend, a lot of bad games usually, but not this week. This year, it's gonna be great. Every game. Welcome to Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Adam, Dave, and Jamie here, breaking down the slate. We'll give you some DFS advice. We'll also give you our top 12 quarterbacks for 2025. This list is set in stone. It will not change. And if you have not voted, please vote for us at sportspodcastgroup.com. I'm only going to hit you over the head with this for a few more days because voting is almost done. Sportspodcastgroup.com. Go to the best fantasy betting and gaming category after you hit vote now and vote for Fantasy Football Today. And tell your friends, please, let's win it. And then you won't have to hear me say that ever again.
What could we do to incentivize people to vote for us at this point in the year?
Adam shaves his eyebrows if we win.
It's always
I like it. We're in.
I went back. We have to submit episodes for this other award thing, and you don't have to vote for it, people. Don't worry. And I went back. I listened to the one where we were going to make a Miami UF bet, and Jamie said we're going to shave our heads. You just love to shave.
Jamie is always down to shave something.
I have, well, first off, you mentioned the top 12 quarterbacks. We already talked about the top 25. I'm sorry, first round. All those stories will be on the site. The quarterbacks is already up. Running backs are already up. Our top 12 running backs are already up. Receivers will be done today. Tight ends, maybe today as well. So you can see all that at cbsports.com. I have a question for you guys because I had a very embarrassing moment this morning. So my 12-year-old was late for middle school, or we were going to be late for middle school. And we literally lived 2 minutes from the school. So I said to him, because he was late waking up, and I said, do you want to eat something? No, in the car, whatever. So I see we're going to be late. We passed the Dunkin' Donuts. So I said, all right, you're going to be late. Let me just get you food anyway. So we drive through Dunkin' Donuts. I realized as I'm about at the drive-through, I don't have my wallet. So I go there all the time. I said, oh, I'm so sorry. Can I just come back and pay you quickly? She goes, do you have Apple Pay? I said, no. Usually I have money on the app, whatever. So she's like, sure, no problem. I was so embarrassed.
They let you buy on credit.
That's wow. What's embarrassing is that you go there enough or that they did let you buy on credit.
Well, it's Jamie Eisenberg from CBS.
No, I mean,
yeah, he's here all the time. He always gets the double.
So I gave her.
Yeah, sure, come back later.
I gave her all the change that I had.
Oh.
I said, I'll give you a down payment.
Oh my gosh.
And so I said, I'll be back in 15 minutes. Well, obviously I went back. I paid.
Well, I would hope.
Couldn't be nicer, but just so I'm not, like, never leave the house.
I thought you were about to say they wouldn't let you pay, and you thought that was dumb, and then we go back to the fantasy cops discussion that we had.
I think it would have been if I was by myself. Oh, I don't know my wallet. I said, I'm just trying to get him food for school. Can you help me out?
It's very nice of them.
It's really, really nice of them, which means you're really, really nice to them when you go and visit. So that's a testimonial to you. Also, great to see it runs in the family that Ronan runs late.
Yes.
By the way, how do you not have Apple Pay?
I'm old man.
No, you should set that up. It's very easy, and this is perfect for these scenarios. In fact, you don't ever have to bring your wallet in. In fact, I leave my wallet in the car a lot, and then I leave, and then I forget about it, and then someone takes that car, or my wife would take that car, and I'll be without a wallet. So that's the bad side of Apple Pay if you're me.
And also, you yesterday, by the way, speaking of annoyances, are we going to do a playoff challenge league? So I spent some time this morning setting one up for you, and got 2 no's, and I'm indifferent.
I said, are you going to set one up? You said yes. And then you said, does anybody want to do it? I said, I'll do it if people want to do it. If not, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not taking any blame for this. Okay.
I did it just for you. I'm already in 3 playoff challenge leagues. I don't need another one.
Yeah, I don't either. All right. So what did Schneier say? Schneier said he's indifferent.
He agreed with me.
He's indifferent. Oh, he agreed with me, actually. Here are your news and notes. The Rams-Buccaneers game could be moved to Arizona. And we want to send our thoughts out to everybody.
Vikings.
Sorry. Yeah. Vikings-Rams game could be moved to Arizona. And now we want to send our thoughts out to everyone in Los Angeles. I know, look, most people know someone who lives in Los Angeles, right? And we know people who are affected by this. So it's just awful. And I'm hoping for the best for everybody. I'm so sorry, but for everything that you're going through. Jalen Hurts and Jordan Love both making progress. Jalen Hurts still in the concussion protocol, but as I said yesterday, optimism that he'll be able to play this weekend. And Jordan Love still has elbow soreness, but we expect him to play. And backup quarterback Malik Willis has a hand injury. Don't know if he'll be able to play. Zay Flowers is unlikely to play. We saw a big spike in targets from Rashad Bateman. Rashad Bateman had 8 targets last week. He had 8 targets 3 times this season. He caught a touchdown in all 3 games. He'll play Pittsburgh this week. Mark Andrews also had a spike in targets last week. So this is very relevant for DFS, of course. Gus Edwards was limited. Quentin Johnston missed practice with an illness and a thigh injury. I think we expect Johnston to go, but not necessarily Josh Palmer. And last week, huge jump in targets for Quentin Johnston with Palmer getting hurt. Tampa Bay could have safety Antoine Winfield back and tight end Cade Otton. They are facing Washington. And we are probably going to get Marshawn Lattimore versus Mike Evans. Isn't that cool, Dave?
It is. It means you can't use Mike Evans in DFS.
It probably means that.
I don't think it's cool, by the way. I think it'll be interesting, and it probably means that Mike Evans won't have a big game.
I think it's pretty cool to see if Lattimore can contain him.
I mean, the one other thing is the last time we saw Marshawn Lattimore play, he was like a vending machine for penalties. Like you throw the ball near him, out comes a yellow flag in your favor.
And I went back and I watched. You're talking about the game against the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
I went back and I watched him shadowing A.J. Brown, and he started off horribly against A.J. Brown. He just got crushed, but he actually started playing a lot better.
No, he was grabbing and holding the entire time.
Okay,
yeah,
that's you know what? That doesn't help my fantasy stats.
Well, that is 100% true. But to say that he played better, he had a terrible game.
I watched the tape as the game went on. I will stand by that. He played better because he started off awful against AJ Brown. He did better. It's a tough task shadowing AJ Brown.
It also was without Jalen Hurts. Keep that in mind too.
That is definitely true. And San Francisco working to extend Brock Purdy, and they say they're going to bring back Deebo Samuel. Pretty interesting.
Also might get Robert Saleh to coordinate their defense.
It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to release Javon Hargrave. Okay, and all right, well, that's fine with the notes. Okay, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, please do so and use the bonus code FANTASY. When you sign up, you're going to get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. So here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up and use that bonus code FANTASY. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure that you use the bonus code FANTASY when you sign up. All right, top 12 quarterbacks for 2025. Who's got Josh Allen number 1? Who's got Lamar Jackson number 1?
Lamar's number 1 for me.
Me too.
Okay, I went with Josh Allen.
Do you want anybody else's but ours? Because I'll queue it up.
Not really.
Okay.
Unless you see something.
Unless is there anybody that put like Daniels or Burrow or Hurts or Mahomes?
I can just tell you the number 1 split. So
maybe the 1s and 2s. Is everybody Allen, Jackson in some order?
Everybody's Allen Jackson.
Jackson.
So Jackson for me, Jackson for Dave, Allen for Heath, Allen for you, Jackson for Dan, and Jackson for Jacob. Those are the only people we have ranked.
Okay.
And everybody's 1-2 in that those 2 guys.
All right. Well, give me 10 seconds on why you went with Jackson. I'll just say for me, it's just the consistency. I think it's 5 straight years being an elite quarterback for Josh Allen. And, unfortunately, his per game averages are hurt by playing 1 snap. So I'm not even counting that.
Yeah, throw it out.
But yeah, it's just every single year he's this good. Okay, why, Dave, for you, 10 seconds on Jackson?
Just because he showed that he improved as a passer. He's coming off of a year where he had career highs in attempts, completions, yards, touchdowns, yards per attempt, ADOT, and sack rate. He's playing at a super high level. I expect the receiving core to get even better, and I think he can challenge Josh Allen and that consecutive streak that Allen's put together.
I think Allen's hit the point where most quarterbacks get to, and I don't think Lamar Jackson will ever get there. The running is slowing down a little bit, and he's still getting the rushing touchdowns. Lamar Jackson's the first quarterback ever with 4,800. And I don't know if that is, barring injury, is something that will change. Like, he's got that in his bag every time he wants to do it. He can throw for over 4,000 yards. He could rush for over 900 yards. And he certainly has 40 touchdown potential, certainly 40 total touchdown potential. So while he doesn't get the same rushing touchdowns as Josh Allen, I think we'll see Allen continue to sort of scale back how much he runs, and Lamar Jackson continue to be at that same plane.
I just want to give you a Josh Allen stat for DFS for later.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Actually, I'm going to take some time and actually calculate the fantasy points because I don't have playoff fantasy points. But Josh Allen in the Buffalo home playoff opener 4 years in a row is unbelievable. So I'll give you those numbers when I calculate the actual fantasy points.
I think he actually will have to be in this game just based on how Denver plays. Like, this could be a game where he runs a lot.
Yeah. All right. So if 1 and 2 are Allen and Jackson in some order, are 3, 4, and 5 Burrow, Hurts, Daniels for everyone?
In some order, yes.
Some order, yeah.
Yeah, let's see if anybody was different.
Just try to talk into the mic when you do that. We lose.
Yeah, sorry. I don't need to look at Dave's. Heath was Allen, Jackson, Hurts, Daniels, Burrow. Dan was, same. And Jacob, same. Yep.
Okay. So we have a consensus top 5 in different orders. But for me, it was Burrow, Hurts, Daniels, 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. Burrow would probably be 4th in 4-point. Dave, how'd you see those 3?
I have Daniels at the top of those 3. Averaged almost 24 fantasy points per game. His final 6 games, 30.4 fantasy points per game. That includes the dud in week 18. You take that out, and it's 35.6. So it's a little bit of what we saw from Lamar Jackson in 2023. Remember how Lamar finished 2023 red hot, over 30 fantasy points per game, and he carried that into 2024. Assuming everything stays the same, if not, even his receiving core is improved, his offensive line gets a little bit better. I wonder if Jaden Daniels can do the exact same thing. Joe Burrow, I do have questions about what his receiving core will look like. He was obviously better in games with T. Higgins, 27.8 fantasy points per game. He averaged 27 for the season, but he was 25 fantasy points per game in 5 games without T. Higgins. If they bring T. Higgins back, much easier to buy into Joe Burrow, and they also have to pay Jamar Chase, no holdout there. That would obviously hurt Joe Burrow. He needs to have that receiving core because he can't do with his legs what other quarterbacks can do with theirs. Jalen Hurts averaged 23 fantasy points per game on the year. He started off pretty strong, 25.6 fantasy points per game in his first 9, and then 23.1 in his last 5, not including week 16. In 7 games where Saquon went off, call it 20 PPR points, Hurts had over 20 fantasy points in just 3. So there was definitely an effect of Saquon Barkley. When he was great, Jalen Hurts wasn't a lock to do it. And so Hurts, even with all that rushing upside, I'm a little bit hesitant to put him anywhere higher than 5th for now.
All right, Jamie, how did you do 3 through 5?
I have Burrow 3, Daniels 4, Hurts 5. I think for the most part, everybody has Hurts 5. If I'm not mistaken, I can confirm that.
I have
For me, and obviously the receiving core will be taken into account once we finalize these rankings, because I don't think it's just Burrow losing. It's Daniels potentially getting it. It might be the same guy. T. Higgins may go to Washington, which would be amazing for Daniels, and obviously a little bit of a downturn for Burrow. What Burrow accomplished this year, he would have been the MVP if they made the playoffs. He's the 3rd quarterback in NFL history to go 4,040 and less than 10 interceptions. The other 2 guys that did it won the MVP, and that was Tom Brady in 2007 and Aaron Rodgers in 2011. So could he continue to play at this level? Absolutely. He did it behind an offensive line that wasn't great this year. He did it with T. Higgins in and out of the lineup. Obviously, Jamar Chase having a historic season, first receiver ever with 1,700 receiving yards and 17 touchdowns is a big part of that. And I do think, and this will be a conversation for down the road, if they keep Mike Gesicki, does he become one of the best values at tight end? Because we saw what he was like when T. Higgins was not there, just an absolute, monster. So, and it might not be him. It could be Eric All, the tight end that they drafted this year, so there could be some value there. And it's not just, Jermaine Burton or Andre Yoshivis, who could be the benefactor of T. Higgins leaving. So yeah, those two guys are almost interchangeable for me. Daniels going in our mock draft that we did ahead of Burrow. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with anybody ranking Daniels ahead of Burrow. I just feel right now Burrow, the year that he just had, Daniels would have to get to the Lamar Jackson level to pass him, and he could. He was second in rushing yards of the position. 3,500 passing yards could easily become 4,000. So he's got that in his bag also. So I think all five of those guys, with unfortunately Hurts, trending in the wrong direction as the fifth quarterback. But he brings up the back end of this group, just because of what he does with the tush push.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree that Jalen Hurts is trending in the wrong direction. He had a terrific year. And again, he's another guy whose per game averages look worse because he only played just a little bit against Washington before leaving with the concussion. He scored 4.5 fantasy points in that game. But I actually had him ahead of Daniels. I guess I was the only one. And it's just because I look at CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson from last year. And obviously Daniels had a better fantasy season than those guys. But I don't know that he played better than CJ Stroud. I mean, CJ Stroud is a different kind of quarterback, but the rookie year Stroud had was unbelievable. Just as a pocket passer, the few interceptions that he threw, he just looked like a rising star. And sometimes guys have hiccups in their second season, and Baker Mayfield comes to mind. So I obviously have no objection to people taking Daniels third, but I had him fifth just because Jalen Hurts every single year now is just a consistent fantasy contributor and a standout. So I went Burrow, Hurts. This 6 point per pass touchdown. These Burrow, Hurts, Daniels.
Yeah, I don't disagree with what you're saying. The reason I said he's going in the wrong direction comparatively, I think just where he has been, and Dave brought it up. It's really the addition of Saquon Barkley. There's a difference. There's a difference maker in the backfield that he hasn't had to deal with before. So that hurt him a few times this season. And we talked about it. The pass attempts went down. Throughout the course of the year. So that's why. And again, he's still a top 5 quarterback. I don't mean to make that he's not going to be a top 5 quarterback. He belongs in this group. But again, we were talking about him as a number 1 quarterback in some cases last year. I think Dave had him ranked number 1 preseason. So
I did.
He's just taken a little bit of a step back by comparison. And the one thing to your point about the rookies from previous years falling off, his legs give him I think a better floor than what CJ Stroud had to fall back on. And his passing is certainly better than Anthony Richardson's. And Richardson really didn't have enough of a sample size. So by the Baker comparison, the Stroud comparison, if you want to just go the other route too, Justin Herbert was pretty good in his rookie season and followed that up with a big year too.
Oh yeah.
So the other thing I'll say is I don't think Jalen Hurts is going in the wrong direction. I think that there are just other quarterbacks that are going in the right direction.
Yeah, I just don't know if he has that 28 point per game.
Right. So he had that once. He had that in 2022. In 2021, 2023, 2024, he averaged anywhere from 22 to 24 fantasy points per game. That's 6 point per passing touchdown leagues. That's good. That's good. That's really good. And he had like spurts in each of the past 2 years where he was over 25 fantasy points per game. It's putting it all together and playing at a high level for a full season, which is what he did in 22. I don't know if he can do that for a full year again, as long as Saquon Barkley's there. That's why he's fifth, and there's a chance I could move him down from 5 because other quarterbacks could just be in a better spot where they can be a little bit more consistent and a lot more explosive. You could make the case for Baker Mayfield to go ahead of Jalen Hurts, as silly as that sounds. I'm not doing it. You can make the case for it.
Silly. Yeah. All right.
We have actually one of the people who participated in this did not rank Baker Mayfield as a top 12 quarterback.
Oh wow. Okay. That was Jacob, right?
I mean, I'll make you read the story to find out.
All right. We'll be right back after this break on Fantasy Football Today. So
two people did not have Baker Mayfield in the top 12.
Schneier, wow. So I have no idea. So top 12 quarterbacks. We're back here talking about this, and then we'll do DFS after. The top 5 were the same names in a different order. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen were 1 and 2 in some order, and then Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts were 3, 4, 5 in some order for everybody who's ranking. Okay, now it gets interesting. Who's 6 for you guys?
I have Baker.
I think I have Baker too.
And again, a lot can change. We're talking about our rankings in January. We don't know what his receiving core will look like. Can you bank on Jalen McMillan continuing his breakout from the last 5 games? Is Chris Godwin going to be there? Is he gone? Is Mike Evans going to fall off? Who's his offensive coordinator? What's the offensive line look like? Can Baker Mayfield play well in his age 30 season? There's a lot to doubt with Baker Mayfield. You can make the case against him, but once I'm past those first 5 quarterbacks, I'm pretty sure I'm going to commit to upside. And it's going to be getting a quarterback with upside well past like round 6 in my draft. And so I need to just keep finding quarterbacks that have sky high upside. This dude had it. He averaged over 26 points per game. First time in maybe ever that he's averaged that much in a fantasy league. He averaged over 28 fantasy
it's the first time ever doing that, yeah.
28 or more with Godwin and Evans for 7 games. And he averaged 31.5 fantasy points per game during Jalen McMillan's breakout. Obviously, Mike Evans played. Those are the final 5 games of the year. You can even point to the 3 games where he didn't have Godwin's, didn't have Evans. Jalen McMillan wasn't a thing yet. It was weeks 8 through 10. He averaged 20.4. That's not far off from where Patrick Mahomes has been each of the last 2 years. Now, I don't want to draft this guy 6th and get that. That's a problem for me. But I also don't think that that's where he'll live if things generally stay the same in Tampa and he's given this carte blanche to keep throwing to explosive receiving core like we saw at the beginning of the year when Godwin was healthy and at the end of the year when Jalen McMillan stepped up.
And Jamie, you also have Baker Mayfield. So who's 7 for you guys?
I think there are 3 guys that qualify for the next 3 spots for me, and it's Baker Mayfield, it's Jared Goff, and it's Patrick Mahomes. And Mahomes is the tricky one because, as Dave just alluded to, he hasn't been great, as we know, as a fantasy quarterback the last 2 seasons. But I think you got to kind of look at the pockets of some of his performances. And you look at the playoffs last year, and you look at what started to happen in the back half of this season, really culminating in the final 2 games with how he performed in weeks 16 and 17, not playing in week 18. And so they got faster. And that's a big part, I think, what's been missing from this offense is having multiple players who can make plays down the field, opening up the middle of the field for Kelsey if he does come back. It's still something we have to keep an eye on. But Goff has shown the ability in this offense, and this is a big part because Ben Johnson is gone after the season, most likely. So does everything stay the same? This offensive line is a big, big contributor to what the Lions do in every facet. And obviously helping Jared Goff because he's one of the least mobile quarterbacks in the league. So does that continue to stay the same? Hopefully that's the case. Jameson Williams has emerged as a legitimate NFL wide receiver, and that's opened up this offense as well. Sam Laporta's come on in the second half. And obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown is one of the best receivers in the game. So he's got the receiving core. He should still have the same system in place. And obviously if he's getting protected, there's a lot to love about what Jared Goff has shown. And then when you look at, Mahomes, for example, you just got to hope that the offensive line gets a little bit better and, he continues just to, lean on, gets Rice for a full season. That'll be huge.
I am going to make a change in my rankings. So, let's do 6 through 8.
I have to change the story now?
Can I just change one ranking or no?
I'll tell you what. You can talk to Dan and have him change it for you.
Okay. I'm going to put Baker ahead of Mahomes because I went Mahomes, Baker, Goff at 6, 7, 8. And what's your order, Jamie? Baker,
Goff, Mahomes.
And Dave. What's funny is you might change that 7 times between now and August.
I take the over. So I don't know. I can't really justify. I do like Xavier Worthy a lot. I think he's going to be good, but I don't love Kelsey that much if he's back. I just like it's obvious he can't do anything after the catch really anymore. Right. But
loving Kelsey and Kelsey helping Mahomes can be 2 separate things.
Yeah, I know. But and Rashee Rice, like if Rashee Rice, you heard me voice my concerns about Rashee Rice yesterday and what he'll be when he comes back. But it does look like it could be a good receiving core. I also just think they had so many running back rushing touchdowns that could have been Mahomes touchdowns. But I can't see a justification right now in a 6-point per passing touchdown league for putting Mahomes over Mayfield because Mayfield rushed for 378 yards. Now, that is a number that's probably going to come down. It's the first time he's rushed for more than 11 yards per game. He rushed for over 20 yards per game. But if he's in the 15 yards per game, he's still going to be like around Mahomes there. So I'm going to go Baker at 6, Mahomes 7, Goff 8. And Dave, what's your order?
That's my order. Baker, Mahomes, Goff. And I hate betting against Jared Goff. Averaged 23.4 fantasy points per game. He averaged actually 25.5 from week 4. And remember that slow start that he had? The Lions didn't start slow, but he did. His numbers weren't great. And then from week 4 on, he had more games where he caught fire than not. 6 games with over 30 fantasy points in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. That's pretty good. Hard to ignore that. Could he do more of that next year? What would it take for that to happen? I don't know. I don't think that there's a chance that he does better than that next year when the running game is still going to be a focal point of their offense.
Yeah, Jared Goff is the number 7 quarterback per game this year, which just sounds crazy considering how good of a year he had. But 56 rushing yards, no touchdowns. That gives him a ceiling. All right, so if the 3 of us have the same top 8, the top 5 that we talked about, and then in some order, Baker, Goff, Mahomes. All right, so let's do 9 and 10. Jamie, who's 9 and 10 for you?
9 for me is Kyler. 10 is Brock Purdy.
9 for me is Caleb Williams, and 10 is Justin Herbert. This is very much in pencil.
Wait a second. Yeah. Jamie, who was it? 9 was who?
Kyler Murray is 9. Brock Purdy is 10.
Okay. That's 10 and 11 for me. Dave, and who is it for you?
Caleb Williams at 9, Justin Herbert at 10.
Wow. Okay, for me, it's Sam Darnold 9, Kyler Murray 10. Well, interesting. Anybody have strong conviction about one of those guys being number 9 or 10 for you?
So Dave said something earlier in regards to Baker about drafting for upside of the position. And when I think of upside of the position, 2 guys that we haven't talked about yet come to mind is Kyler Murray and Anthony Richardson. And they have as much upside as any quarterback as we've seen. I guess probably Caleb Williams. Those 3. Darnold is the toughest one to rank because we don't know what's going to happen with him. We don't know what's going to happen with McCarthy. It could be a situation where if they bring both back to Minnesota, one maybe on the franchise tag as opposed to a long-term deal for Darnold, and he struggles, does McCarthy, if he's healthy, get in there and takes over the job? If they commit to Darnold long-term, does he turn into Sam Darnold again, despite the fact of great coaching of Kevin O'Connell? As we saw in the game against the Lions, he was miserable. So we saw the highs of Sam Darnold. He's just so hard to rank. Purdy's had a very good fantasy season, but again, we know what the ups and downs are with him and what this team's going to look like because there's a lot of changes most likely coming to San Francisco. And then, but again, just in terms of upside, it's hard to overlook, the spikes of performances from Kyler Murray in his career and the spikes of Anthony Richardson over the last 2 years. So for me, I feel much more safer about Kyler. I think he had a few struggles. I'd like to see what this offseason looks like for the Cardinals and what they do, but I'm still a believer in his talent. And so once we get past those 8 guys, which I think are going to be locked in for a lot of people, to me, Kyler is the next guy off the board.
Okay. And Dave, with Caleb Williams up there, it's funny. Caleb Williams, if you look at total yards accounted for, he and Bo Nix were about even. It's just touchdowns were the huge difference there. So you said you had Caleb 9, right?
I do. Don't love it, but it's based on the hope that the Bears get it right with their new coach / offensive coordinator and their offensive line. I think the biggest problem that Caleb Williams had was that he was holding the ball too long. And there were times where it was because of indecisiveness on his part and because of play design on the coaching staff's part. There were a lot of plays where they only needed to get like 5, 6, 7 yards. And all 3 of the receivers that we know were running 12 plus yards downfield. It was ridiculous. So he needs a better play designer. I'd love it to be Ben Johnson. Worried that it could be somebody who's not even the head coach. Like, say they get somebody like Vrabel or Brian Flores to be the head coach. They get some OC or someone who's like a quarterback coach now to be the OC, and it just continues to be a mess there. That would make me stay away. If they don't keep Keenan Allen, they'll have to replace him. How they replace him will matter. What their run game looks like will matter. But this is still a guy who can make a bunch of plays off schedule. And if that is meshed with a good play designer, good offense, good O-line, I could see that guy taking a step in his second season, and I'd want to bank on that upside.
All right. Who are QBs 10 and 11 for you? Dave, you can start.
10 is Justin Herbert. And I've got, I did this before Tyreek Hill was going bonkers. Or at least
I'm
before
sorry.
Hill
I'm
was
so
started.
sorry. 11 and 12. 11.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
my bad.
10 is Herbert. We didn't really talk about him, but you know what could happen to that receiving core that could just absolutely set him on fire. Tua Tagovailoa at 11, Sam Darnold at 12, also very much in pencil. Could very easily be Brock Purdy, could be Jordan Love, could be Kyler Murray, could be a bunch of guys that fall into that spot. Could be JJ McCarthy.
Jamie, who's 11 and 12 for you?
11 for me is Darnold, and 12 is Caleb Williams.
Okay. So 9 through 12 for me are Darnold, Kyler, Purdy, Bo Nix. I guess I was the only one who had Bo Nix in the top 12.
3 of us, yes. Other colleagues have. And a few of our colleagues have Drake May in the top 12.
Yeah.
Sure. I see it.
And Caleb Williams is right there as well. And I think Purdy's going to have I was really encouraged by what I saw from Purdy with the 323 rushing yards in 15 games. I think that's just going to be a part of his game. He likes to do it. He looked good doing it. And
I think it depends on what McCaffrey's status is too, because most of his rushing came pre-McCaffrey coming back.
Well, his whole season was basically without McCaffrey.
True, but I mean, in the 4 games that McCaffrey played, he didn't run very much.
Well, it's not designed runs though.
Yeah, I agree, but I'm just saying, like their offense.
I'm not drafting Brock Purdy for his rushing.
No, but it helps, to have the potential to be a 300-yard rusher. That's a big deal.
And I think if Ayuk is healthy at some point, early in the season, because he'll be back hopefully by midseason, latest. Depending on what happens to Debo, you might have a much more diverse receiving core than they've ever had with Jennings.
Yeah.
Pearson,
Oh yeah, for sure.
Deep for sure, and that'll help because I don't want to. One of my arguments to take Brock Purdy should not be, well, he's got Brandon Ayuk back, because we've seen it far too many times now when a receiver comes back from an ACL. Rarely are they the same guy the very next year.
Oh, I mean, he did what he did this season without Ayuk doing anything.
Sure, but the number this year was 20.5. That was his average on the season.
Yeah, but I mean, you take out the snow game. There's easy ways to Azra stat his numbers to make it look.
Big time, yeah. But he is bad in bad weather. But he scored 2 points against Buffalo. He scored 4 points against the Rams in the rain. He was pretty good, considering all the pieces that were not there.
Well, that's the nice thing about it is and I know their opponents have already been determined, but the division road games, there's only one outdoors.
Right. Okay. And yeah, it'll probably be raining there though.
Well, one is in Seattle, so perhaps.
Right. All right. So let's turn our attention to the wild card games and some DFS help. And what do you guys like? Who are you guys looking forward to? Like who are some names that jump out at you? You're gonna tell me this after we take a commercial break. We'll be right back after this on Fantasy Football Today with a wild card preview and some DFS tips. Who are some players that you really want in your lineups, Jamie?
Well, I think you got to first determine what kind of slate you're playing. You playing the Saturday slate, the Sunday slate, or the full playoff slate, because that's going to determine how you approach it. So the one lineup that I've done so far, the full slate on FanDuel, which is Saturday through Monday, just to get a sample size of everybody. I really like Stafford a lot. I think he's got an opportunity based on his costs. He's one of the cheaper quarterbacks to have a big game. I know he's been terrible as a fantasy quarterback down the stretch, but we know if you can block the Vikings, you can throw on the Vikings. And if they can protect him, I think the opportunities will be there for certainly Puka Nacua, hopefully somebody else in the receiving core. But I like the setup for Stafford quite a bit based on his cost. Clearly, if you want to spend on that position at quarterback, you can find some great options here. So Lamar is going to be a superstar. I think Darnold will have a good game too. Facing the Rams defense, hopefully. So yeah, it's an easy position to find some guys.
That is interesting. Because I look at that Rams Vikings game as a possible avoid. The Rams have been really good on defense lately. Forget about week 18. But I think they gave up like single-digit points to 4 of their – I have their schedule right here. They gave up 14 points at the Saints. Okay, whatever. Then 44 points or 42 points to Buffalo. 6 points at San Francisco. 9 points at the Jets. 9 points against Arizona. Their defense has been really good, and their offense really hasn't been. They are awful in the first half for whatever reason.
Stafford has single-digit fantasy points in each of his last 3 games.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but again, we're talking DFS. You're trying to win and be
That's
different.
the thing.
So that's the key.
Yeah, I know, but you're also trying to win. All right. Like I was thinking Herbert would be I don't know if people are going to be on him, but he's playing great, and the Texans kind of stink. I don't know if people are.
Herbert's great. Absolutely.
I don't know what the percentages are going to be.
There's plenty of different directions you can go. You can look at Russell Wilson and CJ Stroud, who have been struggling, and hope that they just get hot and get some of these. Like you really want a Packers Cowboys game.
Oh yeah, for sure. So so which games do we want to target, or you can keep discussing who you guys like. So go for it. It's however you want to do it.
The Commanders-Bucks game, I think, has the highest total on the weekend.
Yes, that's going to be the most popular.
That's what I'm thinking too. But I might not mind, especially at quarterback, going with Jaden Daniels, and he might be the most popular guy, but I don't think it'll be by a wide margin because people are still going to say, well, if I'm spending $7,500 for Jaden Daniels and I want to be a little bit different, or I want a sure thing, Adam, you talked about how Josh Allen has started the playoffs with a boom every year of his career. He's 700 more on DraftKings, so you could spend up a little bit to get him. Lamar is 500 more than Jaden Daniels. Baker Mayfield is 700 less. So, you could go in any of those directions and be different. But I think that's the game where both defenses might go out the window, and I just want big pieces of that offense, sans Mike Evans, because of the whole Lattimore thing. I don't know if Evans can dominate Lattimore, even if, short of Lattimore holding him on every other play.
Yeah, well, McMillan's only 6,400.
Oh, he's the free space.
Yeah. I actually built a lineup without him. I don't know if I like that I did that, but I did that.
So 3 games have high over-unders, 47 to 50 points. That would be Broncos-Bills, but with the Broncos as heavy favorite, or the Bills as heavy favorites, 8.5 points. Rams-Vikings, that game's just a 1-point spread, so they're expected to score about 24 points each. And Commanders-Bucks have an over-under of 50. Eagles-Packers is 45.5, which is really interesting given the injuries, the status of the quarterbacks. But right now, they're probably going to play. Eagles are 4.5-point favorites. And then you have Chargers-Texans with the lowest total, 42.5, with the Texans as 3-point home underdogs. And Steelers-Ravens, 43.5-point total here, but Ravens are huge favorites, 9.5 points. So the Steelers, if you buy into the Vegas lines, don't start any Steelers.
Or if you buy into your eyeballs, don't start any Steelers.
Yeah. I what about Bateman? I mean, is he an easier free space than McMillan?
No, because I think you've seen what McMillan has done, and you see the defense that he's facing. Bateman should have an opportunity for a good game, but we know how this Ravens offense operates. And still, the Steelers, I know they didn't show up how they typically show up against the Ravens in the last meeting, but this is still them for their playoff lives and trying to, pull off a huge upset. So I'm not worried about Lamar, and I'm not worried about Andrews, but Bateman I don't think he's definitely a great play without question, but I don't think he's as easy a play as McMillan is.
There are 3 wide receivers all in a row on DraftKings: McMillan, Mims, Bateman, 5,200, 5,100, 5,000. And I guarantee you that at least one of those 3 will be in 75% of the lineups, and maybe all 3 of them in a smattering of lineups because they're hot. They're in great positions to have just big games. Bateman, especially without Zay Flowers there, that you can make the case that he could just see an uptick in targets and maybe even a couple of big plays from Lamar Jackson. Honestly, it wouldn't be that shocking to see even against the Steelers.
Can you save money at running back? I feel like the only running back I'm just looking at FanDuel actually, only running back that's kind of cheap that I would be interested in is Jalen Warren, and FanDuel is only half PPR, so I don't love that. I'm probably paying up. I'm going with Bucky Irving and Joe Mixon. I look at running back, and I don't mind the top guys. I probably would not go with Kyron Williams because I do respect that Vikings run defense. But Bucky Irving, Washington gives up 4.9 yards per carry to running back, something crazy like that. And Mixon's been awful lately, but in bad matchups. The Chargers are another team that's not good against the run. So I think Mixon can get going again. Those are my guys on FanDuel, Bucky and Mixon. I'm not going with Henry, Barkley, Kyron, or Cook. Jacobs I'd be fine with. But I don't really see a way to save money really at running back. I don't know if you guys agree.
What do you see for J.K. Dobbins as far as his value?
100. He's more or less priced. Brian Robinson Jr. at 6,500 is interesting, but the Bucs run defense has been phenomenal lately.
Yeah, I'm staying away from that. Like if I'm going to play a Commanders running back, it'll be Eckler, not Robinson.
Especially
since Eckler's cheaper.
If the Bucs are in a shootout, Rashad White could be a good option at 5,700 on FanDuel. That's basically the same price as Jalen Warren.
Those are the good cheaper options. I think Eckler's certainly worth a look based on how this game should go. But yeah, it's either I think you spend up or you just kind of fall into something that you think you like. So the lineup I built does have 3 running backs in it, flex with Eckler, Bucky, and Dobbins.
Who's the wide receiver you just need to have?
I mean, the one lineup I built was a Ram stack, so I put Puka in.
I put Jordan Addison in my lineup. I think he's going to be under the radar.
Yeah, the 3 receivers I was kind of chalky. I went with Puka, Addison, and McMillan.
And I didn't have that chance, and I have a receiver in my flex. I went with McLaurin to stack with Jaden Daniels because I'm going with Jaden Daniels. Addison, I think, will be under the radar. And I wonder if Dontavian Wicks gets a lot more run and some more deep targets with Christian Watson sideline. It's what we've seen all season long. Why would it change now? He's cheap. And then Demarcus Robinson, I kind of just wedged in there. But a third receiver for the Rams against that Vikings secondary, cheap option. And Cooper Kupp has stunk for the last month or so. And I wonder if Robinson can be a guy that starts to make some plays opposite of Puka.
Oh, I thought you were going to suggest Kupp as a
Kupp is a great contrarian play because I think everybody's going to be running away from him. So if you like the Rams, just looking at the Vikings and how their secondary has been, then there's an opportunity there. There's going to be, like the Packers receiving core is so interesting because you wonder if the Eagles offense shows up early and they're forced to throw, then they're almost all in play. But if the game is close, then we get more of the same of the Packers, which is going to make them all just tremendously difficult.
Do you think the Broncos passing game will be good with Nix, with Sutton, maybe Mims?
I think it's very possible.
I think we get them chasing points, yeah.
Yeah. And so like I'm just tooling around with my lineup now. I just took out Daniels and McLaurin, replaced them with Bo Nix and Sutton. I think Bo Nix he might be the under the radar quarterback that I'd target. Bills pass rush is going to be awesome, but their secondary and their defense in general really has not played well to close the season. They will be chasing points. Sutton's very much involved in what they do. I kind of like it, and I freed up over a G's worth of salary to go and spend to take somebody like Robinson out of my lineup, or Wicks, or both. So I kind of like that if I'm doing a tournament. If it's a cash game, just trying to double my money or triple my money, I'm going to go chalkier at quarterback than this.
Okay. Anything else you want to say about this slate?
No, it's fun. I'm going to have a DFS stuff story on the site. It might be Sportsline. I'm not sure where they'll put it. But with good price values and bad values to avoid, and some props on there too. So should be fun.
You like Dobbs or Tucker Kraft? We haven't talked about tight end at all. By the way, just a real cheap tight end, Will Dissly just is the guy now. He had a big game in week 18. I know nobody was really paying attention to week 18, but Will Dissly had a big game. He seems to be back as the number 1 tight end. He's pretty cheap. He and Tucker Kraft on FanDuel are the 2 kind of discount tight ends that I might look at. It's not a great tight end slate. You don't have McBride. You don't have Bowers. You don't have Kelsey. That was
the one spot I spent up for was Andrews.
Andrews?
Yeah. I mean, just again, with no Zay Flowers and looking at how the Steelers have defended the position lately, there's an opportunity for him to play well. I think Freiermuth is still interesting. I know he hasn't done well against the Ravens, but that they're probably chasing points, and he's been good overall down stretch.
All right.
I'm struggling at tight end just looking at it right now. I had Phillips in there to stack with the Commanders, but if I'm taking the Commanders out and putting the Broncos in, I'm going to make some changes there.
And just knowing the way the fantasy gods work, Dalton Kincaid will have a.
Oh, I know who I'm putting in. What about Isaiah Likely? If there's no Zay Flowers, There's
Yep.
absolutely an opportunity for him to play more. He's been a red zone threat generally all year for the Ravens. That's who I'm putting in at tight end. And now look at me. I've got 6,500 to spend on a flex spot. I'm rolling in dough now. I can go big.
How much you like McLaurin this week?
I like him a lot. I might put him in.
Yeah, if
He's
you like Jane
active.
Daniels, you should have to. That's the easy stack. That's the obvious stack.
Man, I really want to get Josh Allen in my lineup, but I just cannot figure out a way to do it. He is so expensive. But I calculated the fantasy points. The home opener, the playoff home opener for Josh Allen, 4 games, I think 4 straight seasons, 36.5, 38.6, 30, and 39.5 fantasy points in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. He just goes insane. But I think Baker Mayfield could also have a huge game. Oh, man. You know what's even harder than making a DFS lineup? Picking who's going to win these games. Let's do it. Well, I'll just get. You want to give your lineup? I'll give my stupid lineup. I don't love it. But Baker Mayfield, Bucky Irving, Joe Mixon, Ladd McConkey. I basically consider Ladd McConkey just a number one. He's not Puka. He's not A.J. Brown, although, you worry a little bit about Brown. But he's not Nico. But he's not too far behind. So
right, and he does have the upside to be there. We've seen that a couple times this year.
Baker, Bucky, Mixon, McConkey, McLaurin, McMillan. Ooh, how about that? It's the
Mix stack.
Yeah, there we go. Mixon, McConkey, McMillan, and McLaurin. Flex is Romeo Dobbs. Tight end is Tucker Kraft, and I went with the Rams DST. Why did I go with the Rams DST? Yeah, okay. I don't have any Vikings in there. It's fine. That's the one game that I'm probably concerned about that no one else is going to be concerned about is that Vikings-Rams game. I would probably pick the under. I don't really do a lot of betting on over-unders, but those defenses are not that bad. Probably underrated defenses. So I don't have anyone from that game, whereas Jamie has a Ram stack. So obviously we see things very differently. Give me a lineup, Jamie. That's a FanDuel lineup for me, by the way. What do you got?
FanDuel also. It's Stafford at quarterback, Bucky Irving, and J.K. Dobbins at running back. Puka Nacua, Jordan Addison, and Jalen McMillan at receiver. Mark Andrews at tight end. Eckler at flex, and the Chargers defense.
Yeah, I like the Eckler call. I mean, that could be a good one. Dave, what do you got?
I have tooled around and landed on this. Bo Nix at quarterback. I will stack him with Cortland Sutton. My running backs are James Cook and J.K. Dobbins. My wide receivers are Sutton, Jordan Addison, Terry McLaurin, Isaiah Likely at tight end. I really love that one now. Keon Coleman is currently in my flex, but I've got 800 left to spend. So I could either spend up there and get rid of Keon Coleman, just trying to be different, bring back the Broncos stack, obviously, with Cook and Coleman. And I've also have the Vikings defense. I like what you were saying about that game and how it could be lower scoring. But I could just as easily dump the Vikings and go with the Ravens. And I could dump Keon Coleman and maybe get Olamide Zaccheaus and have just as much of a unique lineup that way. And I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'm taking out Coleman. This is going to come back to bite me. I already feel it already. Olamide Zaccheaus as my flex. And now I've got more than enough to put the Ravens as my defense. So Nix, Cook, Dobbins, Sutton, Addison, McLaurin, Likely, Olamide Zaccheaus in the flex. It's fun to say his name. And the Ravens DST.
If this was a regular season game and the Broncos were 8.5-point dogs at the Bills, I'd probably pick the Broncos to cover that. I think they're a solid team.
I'm still picking the Broncos to cover that.
Yeah, I did too.
Okay, it's a lot, but this it's not going to be one of those Buffalo weather games. Not that like Denver doesn't have bad weather, but you know how Josh Allen just seem to know how to play in those conditions. It's going to be a really good weather weekend as of now. If you just look at our guy Kevin Roth, every game is green. He basically said it's as ideal as it gets for Orchard Park this time of year. So I don't think weather is a factor. All right, so we'll start with that game. You guys are taking Bills to win, Broncos to cover?
Yes.
I'll take Broncos to cover, or Bills to cover. I'll take Bills with the -8.5, but not a lot of conviction there. Chargers, Texans, Chargers -3. What do you guys think?
Chargers win and cover.
That's probably going to be the way that I lean as well.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah. Hooray. Steelers, Ravens -9.5.
Ravens win and cover.
Ravens win, Steelers cover.
I agree. Could anyone see the Steelers winning this game? Because they have, other
Definitely.
than the last time they
Definitely.
played.
Yes, they have a very good track record against Lamar Jackson. Lamar's last game against them is the best game he's had against the Steelers in his career.
Yeah.
So he's hoping to build on that. And ultimately, we've seen the Ravens melt down in their first playoff game before. I'm hoping that doesn't happen here. But the Steelers are definitely going to have something for Lamar to deal with. And Derrick Henry's got to really erupt, I think. And honestly, I think that that's what they're going to do is feed Derrick Henry. This is the time of year. Remember last year, their playoff game against Kansas City, they didn't run the ball at all. They just put it all on Lamar, and he was a mess. And it wasn't what anybody was expecting. And this year, I think they try and make amends for that. And I think they've been doing that all year long. And I think that's going to help carry them to a victory, but it will not be easy.
Ravens defense is playing so well right now.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if the Steelers can score.
Yeah, no, it's certainly a concern. Packers, Eagles minus 4.5. What do you guys think?
Eagles win and cover.
I'm going to agree, provided that Jalen Hurts starts and all that stuff, and that's how it's looking.
I will say the Eagles win, but the Packers cover. And Bucks Commanders. Bucks are 3-point favorites on Sunday night.
This is my upset. Commanders win.
Bucks win, Commanders cover.
I got to pick some upset here, right?
There's only one other game left to pick if you're going to pick an upset.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Bucks. Are the Bucks any good?
Definitely.
I don't know that they're that good.
They can score points and they can get after the quarterback. The problem is they're facing a quarterback who can run like crazy. And he did it to them in his very first game as an NFL starter. And he's gotten better since then.
Does anybody remember week 1 these two teams played?
Yeah.
37-20 Buccaneers at home. It's a long, long time ago. Just feel like they've beaten a lot of lousy teams. They beat the all right. Now they've beaten.
They both have beaten a lot of lousy teams.
They beat some.
Daniels had 2 rushing touchdowns, 88 rushing yards. He was pretty tepid as a passer. No touchdowns, 17 of 24. Austin Eckler was the best receiver for the Commanders, yardage wise. I think they're very much a different team. But the one thing that hasn't changed is that Jaden Daniels can run, and he's going to do a lot of that. Now I'm talking myself into putting him back into my stack.
Most of the good wins for the Bucs were earlier this year, but I mean they started with wins against Washington, at Detroit, and home against Philadelphia. That's a really good. That's 3 of their first 4 games. All right, I'm gonna take the Bucs.
And the Commanders' best win is what? The Eagles without Hurts, right?
I haven't looked at their schedule, but let's find out. This is important to know. I mean, that was probably their best win. I mean, they beat the Giants a couple times, right?
Sure.
They beat Cincinnati on the road, 38-33. They beat the crap out of Arizona on the road. They beat, other than that, kind of a bunch of cupcakes. All right, you know what? I think Tampa Bay, it's coming into a clearer picture for me. Tampa Bay wins and covers. Thank you, Jamie. Then I have to pick the Vikings to win. I can't pick all the favorites here. So Vikings with a win they're favored. Crap. All right, I'm picking all the favorites. They're 1-point favorites.
I have the Rams winning this one. Sorry.
Yeah, I think they want you to take the Vikings. And
they want you. They have an algorithm, Dave.
Sure, right.
They do.
Okay.
They don't. Oh, this is the public. I want the public to take it. No, they have a bunch of nerds.
For the majority of lines that they put out, they try and put something competitive so that they get 50% on one side, 50% on the other side.
Yeah.
But there are some. I've been picking games for basically the last 15 years. There are some games where they want you on one side. I cannot be convinced otherwise of this.
Okay.
And I've been told that they do this.
But why is
I've
it?
also been told that they don't do this, like just now. Do you think that Matthew Stafford has 4 passing touchdowns again?
No.
Like he did in week 8? That week 8 game was so pivotal for the Rams. They were 2-4 going into it. They ran the ball okay. And it was a short week game. Stafford threw 4 touchdowns. Kupp was good. Demarcus Robinson went off. If he can do that again, Sean McVay just has the magic number against his former coaches. Then I think that they're the side to be on.
Schaefer, how you feeling about it?
Not good. It kind of reminds me of the Giants Vikings game from a couple years ago where we were a small favorite. And it's kind of like Dave said, they want you to take the Vikings, but then the Giants end up winning that game 2 years ago, I think it was. So, not good.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
This is a $40 million a year game for Sam Darnold.
Yeah, it's a big game for him. Absolutely. Okay. I think they just have more talent than the Rams, but I think there's a reason why it's a 1-point spread, right? It's a tough game to pick. Try to get the bad taste out of your mouth if you are picking the Vikings. I know the last time that we saw them, they looked like crap, but don't want to necessarily just base it on the last time we saw them.
The thing that got exposed in that game, and it's kind of been a little bit of a problem for the second half of the season, is the offensive line was a disaster. And when the offensive line's a disaster, Sam Darnold's a disaster. And so you're going to see Jared Verse on Cam Robinson a lot. And we're going to see if the defensive rookie of the year against a struggling left tackle determines this game. And it might.
How many sacks did the Rams have of Sam Darnold in week 8?
14. 18 sacks. They set a record.
No, 3. You know how many sacks the Vikings had of Matthew Stafford?
16. 41. They've set a record.
0.
Oh.
They did not sack Matthew Stafford even one time.
I was too high, I think.
A little bit.
I said sacks, not points.
Pass attempts. All right, we're out of here, everybody. Enjoy the games, and we'll talk to you Monday on Fantasy Football Today.